Hello students, this video is a walkthrough of the Module 3 project proposal assignment. In this assignment you will be choosing one of 3 real-life scenarios to do your project on. In this paper you will be introducing your scenario and the math involved in it. You'll also be presenting the data from your sources associated with the scenario. Let's walk through what is required. This is what you'll see at the top of the guidelines page for this assignment, Module 3 Proposal Guidelines and Rubric. These are the guidelines you need. However, this assignment requires you to choose a scenario. The scenarios are on a different page, which you will visit temporarily. To get there, just scroll down on this page until you see the supporting materials heading in bold. It's just after the larger What to Submit heading. You'll see a blue hyperlink titled Project Guidelines and Rubric, and this is what you want to go to temporarily. These are the guidelines for the final draft of the course project, and this is where you will find the scenarios to choose from. So go ahead and click Project Guidelines and Rubric. It will take you to a page with a heading like this. When you're ready to select your scenario, just scroll down a bit until you see Scenarios 1, 2, and 3. Each scenario describes a situation where you're gathering information in order to convince one or more persons to take action in a particular way. So as you decide on a scenario, it may help to consider what you would prefer convincing people to do. Would you prefer convincing your state representative that energy drinks should not be sold to minors, or possibly that they should be allowed to be sold to minors? That's the task of Scenario 1. Scenario 2 would require you to convince a school board that creating a community garden is worth it when you take economic, environmental, and social factors into account. Scenario 3 has you convincing an audience of young people to pursue financial wellness by learning the basic concepts and tools that contribute to financial well-being. Once you've chosen your scenario, you're locked into it for the remainder of the course. It's used in all of the major assignments, which include the Module 3 project proposal, the Module 5 project draft, and the Module 7 project final draft. Once you select your scenario, navigate back to the Module 3 project proposal guidelines, and then scroll down again to the section titled Supporting Materials. As I said earlier, each scenario requires you to gather information in order to convince people to take action in a particular way. So to gather information, you will rely on the sources available on the project resources page. The last blue hyperlink you see here is the link to the project resources page. Click it and it will take you to a page that looks like this. Notice that this page reminds you that you must use at least 3 sources to support your project. The data sources are organized by scenario, so it's easy to see what sources are associated with your chosen scenario. Most of the choices will link to recent studies that will provide you with data that you can describe and analyze, which is vital for your project. Some of the options offer tools or information that could be helpful, but they lack numbers. This is especially true for Scenario 3. If you choose Scenario 3, be sure to select at least one source that is a study that offers numerical data that you can describe and analyze. It's very difficult to make sense of this project without that. How do you know which sources to choose? Well, as you browse your available resources, look for data you believe will help you support your points, whether it's points you make to convince your state rep to prohibit energy drinks for minors, as in Scenario 1, or points that show the economic, environmental, and social benefits of a community garden, as in Scenario 2, or points that show the importance of financial wellness in Scenario 3. The sources you choose should ultimately provide you with supporting evidence for your paper. Remember to use at least 3 sources, but some may find it helpful to use 4 or 5. Now going back again to the assignment at hand, which is the Module 3 project proposal, what does this project proposal aim to do exactly? As it says here, in this proposal you will complete part 1 of the project as you examine the context of the data from your chosen sources. So the Module 3 project proposal is actually part 1 of the course project. What you do for this assignment will later be revised and included in your final draft, which has parts 1, 2, and 3. Well, the key word to pay attention to in this sentence I've highlighted is the word context. This assignment is meant to shed light on the circumstances of the situation you've selected. More specifically, you introduce the mathematical aspects of your chosen scenario and you describe what your data shows in your chosen sources. Moving on to the nitty-gritty, let's look at the assignment directions. Just scroll down slightly and you'll see this. A quick reminder here, again, completing this assignment will result in a draft of the first part of your project. And by project, they mean your final project due at the end of week 7. Now for the first rubric criteria, number 1. You're to describe how math is used in your chosen scenario. To help guide you in this answer, use what is written in A. Consider whether you will use formulas, comparisons, proportions, percentages, conversions, or other applications of mathematics for data analysis. It would be good to choose at least 3 or possibly more of these mathematical concepts and describe how they could be used to shed more light on your scenario. For instance, those who chose the financial wellness scenario could describe briefly how formulas could be useful for certain financial planning. Or an example for the energy drink scenario could be highlighting the value of comparisons between different populations. As I said, choosing 3 of the mathematical concepts in number 1A will probably be sufficient to show how math could be used in your chosen scenario. Moving on to number 2. Describe the specific mathematical elements that are presented in the scenario. Consider how parts of the scenario can be viewed from a mathematical perspective. So with number 2, the word element just means part or aspect. What parts of your scenario could be seen as mathematical? You need to identify and describe the specific aspects of the scenario that can be analyzed using mathematical concepts. For instance, in scenario 2, how could we view the environmental impact of a community garden mathematically? All right, let's look at number 3, which says to describe the characteristics of quantitative data in your chosen scenario. Well, what data is this? It's the data from your selected sources. Remember that you chose at least 3 sources from the project resources folder. This part of the assignment focuses on that data. This is probably going to be the longest section of the assignment because you probably have quite a bit of data and you have to go through it all and get a sense of what it says and shows. Take your time. Don't rush this section. It's crucial to know what your data shows and also doesn't show. When you work on number 3, just go through all of the sub-questions for each data source that you have. You'll be explaining how mean, median, range, and/or standard deviation can be used to understand your scenario, and also specifically how measures of center and measures of variability can help you compare the data. If you're not sure what these concepts mean, you probably have not yet completed the Module 3 zyBooks work or read the Module 3 guide. This is a must before completing your project proposal. Number 3 also asks you to look for possible trends or patterns. It's okay to speculate. You're just pointing out some possibilities worth considering. Now let's move on to number 4. Explain the relevance of quantitative reasoning in your chosen scenario. Consider how the data that is summarized in charts, tables, or diagrams can be interpreted and used to provide meaningful information about the context of your scenario. So first of all, make sure you know what quantitative reasoning is. If you know that, then this question is pretty self-explanatory. Make sure you are thinking about your data sources, including how displays of data, as in tables, graphs, and charts, can shed light on your scenario. Okay, that's it for the prompt. Now just a few housekeeping things that are important. Under what to submit, notice it says something confusing. It says, although you will refer to the sources in the project resources document, you will not refer to any sources from outside this course. All sources used, including those provided or student source, should be cited in APA. Well, this is contradictory, so let me clarify. Don't use data from anywhere but the project resources page. I don't mind if you use other sources for other purposes, such as further research to help you explain a concept, but data that gives evidence for your project should be from the links on the project resources page. Any and all resources that you use should be cited with in-text citations and also in a reference list at the end of the paper. Scrolling down further, you will see the supporting materials section again. Make sure you click the second blue link to download the template you need to use for this paper. You'll notice there's also a link called Module 3 Project Proposal Exemplar. This is an example paper that provides a model to let you know if you're basically on track with the assignment. It's useful to check it out. Last thing, scrolling down just a bit more, you see the rubric for this assignment. Notice there are only 3 columns. You can be rated either not evident, needs improvement, or proficient. Keep in mind that this paper will be revised and then included in the final draft in week 7, which will have 4 rubric columns. It will include an exemplary column that is not present at this time. All right, that pretty much sums up the Module 3 project proposal. I hope this has been helpful, but please contact me as questions come up, and good luck on your project proposal.